Okay, students, now we're actually in Module 2, and we're going to be looking at some specifics of form. We said earlier, works of art are material, form, elements of art, principles of design, and meaning. So the form is the elements of art, and those generally are shape, line, texture, etc. Where the principles of design are in our next module. So this PowerPoint and video is important for you to understand. It's the overview of these elements. And let me go to the next slide. And so shape, line, value, texture, color. Where the principles of design is how we put these together. Like, do we repeat a shape or variety of shapes? But we'll get to that not in this module, but in the following module. Now, what's important here is for you to just know the definition, and we're going to look at some examples. And then later, what I've done in this module is I've taken each element and it has its own PowerPoint. But I didn't do a video for every element's PowerPoint just because it's self-explanatory. But I am going to do shape and sort of walk you through that, because we're also talking about characteristics and qualities or types of shapes or lines. So those are the definitions of the elements. Now, usually in a list like this, you wouldn't see the 3D terms. So shape is a 2D term, but plane is our 3D term. And mass and volume, we've already talked about, those are 3D terms. Oftentimes you won't see that. But we're going to talk about sculpture, so you need to have this vocabulary in examining works. For example, the Egyptians only created mass, they never used volumes, whereas the Greeks used volume. So you need to know these definitions. So let's look at these. And in the slides ahead, you will see what I've done here is the element shape. Here's its definition. And then here's the element. And if it is sculpture, then it's going to be here in like this tan color. So we call shape in sculpture plane. These are planular. They are shapes though. But a plane indicates form or something three-dimensional, like this cube right here. Here's the top plane and then there's the side plane. Versus shape in 2D, like this orange sun is a shape. You have all just different kinds of shapes. Here's the cloud that has a turquoise, and then it goes to white. So this is a smaller shape, this is a bigger shape. So if I were going to bring, when we get to the principle of design, this is a variety of shapes. And so here's your FedEx label, and I wanted to, so you can see how commercial artists use shape, and also you can see how a figure ground is being exploited here, negative, positive. That's a nice, clean design. So those are examples of shape. What is shape? An area defined by its boundaries. So here's that red sun. This area, that disk, is defined by the boundaries right there, as well as this F, that shape, that letter. So that is the definition of shape. And in 3D it's plane, and as well some examples. The next element of art is line. Line is an area whose length is longer than it is wide. Now, there are many, there's other ways that text will define line, even shape. So, as you can see here, and when you look at the PowerPoint online, there's a lot of different types of line and how line is used here. This kind of line quality of this drawing, this sketchy, scribbly mark making. Using line, the thickness or thinness of a line. So again, these things, I go into specifics in each PowerPoint on each separate element. Value. Just think of black and white photography. Value is lightness or darkness in color in terms of black, white, and grays. Okay? Color has value. We'll talk about that later. But value is an element of art, usually referred to 2D. And here is the value scale, which that YouTube will go over how this value scale is used. Value. Texture. When you look at the texture PowerPoint, there's different types of texture. Texture is the surface quality of something. And a type is real or simulated. So this cloth obviously is real texture. This looks like sort of dried earth or something, dried mud. And this, like fur, notice these are lines. This artist has used lines to create sort of simulated texture. Not real well, yeah, it's simulated. Actually, it looks like these are almost like forks. But, so texture is the surface quality of something. The surface quality. Color. Color, students, is going to have its own module because it's big. And I want to do a lot with you with color because that's something you use all the time. And so that's its own module. But all of these elements are expressive and they have characteristics and there's types. And so you will explore this when we talk about color in that particular module. And I'm not going to go into this overview. Save that for later. So here's mass. Mass is an element, but it's a 3D term. And these are beautiful examples of mass. What is mass? Occupies space, and it suggests that something is solid or suggests weight. So here you have beautiful Egyptian statues. That's mass. This is Michelangelo, the figure coming out of that stone. And this very large head is an Olmec civilization. So those are all examples of mass. Whereas this is volume. Where when we talked about volume in an earlier video, I don't think it was really clear, but let me just show you this. Volume is negative. Volume has a negative space shape. So you see right here, this triangle, this is defined by sort of this linear quality of these lines here that actually creates a shape. And so this is sort of an implicit and implied shape. It's negative space. So that's negative space when used is equally important as positive. And here you have a beautiful piece of sculpture suspended where this is the positive and this negative space between these objects are equally important. So those are two, I think, good examples of volume. Now, this is an overview of what we just looked at. And as well, what I've done here is I've given you a sort of overview of what you're going to be seeing because each of these elements, now notice these characteristics and types I didn't include down here. Just on the 2D and 3D for shape, I talked about negative, positive shapes, implied shapes, and then types, organic, geometric, and these types of shapes. So you will be able to see those when we go through each one of those individual PowerPoints. So, as I said, I'm going to do a video on shape just to get you started. I don't think I need to do one on each element. They're self-explanatory.